How are you guys today? Good. I'm Sergeant Jason Morris. I'm with the Kentucky State Police. I do our public affairs. I cover from Cincinnati, Ohio, basically to the state of Missouri. So I have a large area that I do cover. Today we're going to look at kind of rules and regulations through law enforcement eyes. I will have a short time at the end to ask questions as well when we're done. If you want to catch me outside, please ask anything. So the reason we're here is safety ultimately, right? I know everybody thinks that at the end of the day, it's law enforcement is out to get us. How many of you, raise a hand, think that that's the idea? Yeah, some I know. It depends on where you're at, right? But at the end of the day, we're really out there looking to ensure the safety of the motoring public. Because this here, just like the last the presenter said, insurance is a big deal, right? So when you have a crash, what does that do to you? Devastating, right? You have property damage. Hopefully there's no personal injuries. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And from a law enforcement standpoint, we look at it as just devastation because we're injuring the motoring public. And our job at the end of the day is to try to ensure that your safety is at our tip. That's what we look for. We don't want to see this. This is exactly what we don't want. This was a crash that occurred back in 2011. The individual woke up that morning just like you all did. He left his home, took off for work. As he's heading north on Interstate 65, he blows a steer tire. Now, how many of you have ever had a steer tire fail on you? What happens to your tractor? Goes every which way but loose, right? Yeah. So the problem with this was, if you notice, the lane had just been paved in the picture behind the truck. Where I'm standing behind me, that one was just paved the day before. So that's a soft material. So instead of that wheel skipping off, it dug. When it did that, it run him into the median where he overturned, and unfortunately this resulted in a fatality crash. The individual that morning did a good pre-trip inspection. He went and he did his due diligence looking at his truck. It wasn't something that he just took lightly. His wife said that he was very meticulous with his equipment. Come to find out, it was a manufactured defect in the tire because the tire was new. But these are the things that we're looking for and trying to prevent. Your goal when you wake up in the morning, what is your ultimate goal? Get home safely, right? We all have family. We all have things that we want to see, and the job is just a small glimpse of what our day entails. That's our goal. Our goal is to make sure that everyone gets there safely, and we do that through enforcement of the regulations. We're looking at the Federal Motor Carrier Regulations. How many of you have tried to read the Green Book? Any success? Got to have a PhD in interpretation, right? Yes, it's a lot of information there. But there's a lot of information, and here's the thing. How many of you knew that federal law is here? States have to meet that. But states can also say, okay, FMCSA, I see your rules, but I'm going to raise my state rules. And they do that. So they'll change those rules and those regulations. In Kentucky, what if you're stopped? Has anybody ever asked that? What if I'm stopped? What do I have to do? First of all, it's not a bad thing. Our guys on the road, they have to do so many inspections every single day, no matter what. Our guys at the scales, same way. So they're stopping. When I work the road, I had an algorithm I used. Today it might be the 25th red truck. Tomorrow it might be the 10th flatbed. Whatever algorithm I chose to use was how I made my stops for that day. Now, throughout my day, if I saw something, of course I would address it. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if you are stopped. If you are stopped, what we want you to do is stay in the truck. How many of you have individuals that are operating down the roadway gladly change lanes to give you space? Nobody, right? You do, but do others do that for you? No. So why do I want you out of the truck playing Frogger? Right? I don't want that. I want to be out and safe because if I've got this young man out with me and I'm inspecting his truck and I hear rumble strips, who do I have to move first? Him, because I am responsible for him. So it's a lot safer to have me out there. And plus the weather, if it's hot, I'd rather you be in your air conditioning. If it's cold, your heat. If it's raining, you stay dry. But the main thing is your safety is at my utmost importance. What will you need? You'll have to have that registration. You'll have to have your insurance, annual inspections, fuel tax if needed, your driver's license. Medical cards. Do you have to keep your medical cards on you? You do? Who says yes? Raise your hands. Who says no? Who's not sure just yet? So, Federal Motor Carriers made a change several years ago that once you have uploaded that medical card to the CDL portal, you are no longer required to keep it after 14 days. Now, every one of you have a binder. Every one of you have a folder or a briefcase, right? Put that in there just in case. But you don't have to physically show that to you. We're not going to ask to see that. We're going to actually run you through the commercial driver's license information system. That's where we'll look to see if you are certified. We'll look to see if you are prohibited in the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. It's also giving us your full driver's history. We can look back when you got your driver's license, and we can see all the way back to there. You'll need your logbook, depending on what you have. If it's an ELD, you're going to have that instruction sheet and malfunction sheet, as well as those enough log sheets to complete your trip. So those are the items that you're going to have as far as on your person. These are some of the technologies that we have in Kentucky. When you enter our scales, we have a series of cameras that are on the poles. How many of you have come through the Kentucky weigh scales? Okay, have you ever noticed that you get a big flash of light in your face? That's our new driver focus cameras. So when you're coming into our scale facility, if you see you've got a series of tires there, and with those tires, you actually have a red tire. That red means that that's an underinflated or flat tire, or it could have low tread depth. So we're going to stop that tractor, and we're going to check that. If you've got different size tires, it can also throw that out. But what we're also looking for, we're checking your DOT number. We're looking at your registration plate, the state, making sure that those are all up to date and enforced. We're making sure that you're run through the FMCSA and that your DOT number is good as well. And here's that focus camera I was talking about. Gives you right here on the bottom, in this bottom right corner, see the gentleman? We're looking for a couple things there. You don't know how many times drivers come in, and it's not the person that we saw going by our scale window. We're like, no, wait a minute, you had a white shirt on. And then come to find out he's running somebody else's log, and the co-driver has gone in because he's out of hours. So this helps us to determine who the driver was. This also helps us determine if you had your seatbelt on, if you had your cell phone up to your head, or if you're one that's restricted to corrective lenses. We can double check that as well. So it helps us in a multitude of ways. Wave at it if you want. We've had a few 5-finger waves -4. So, you know, we've had a few of those come through. We giggle and laugh about it. So it's just all part of the day. But these are some of the technologies that we do have. There are also 3 levels of inspections that you can have. The level 3 is the fastest and the least amount of activity. That's the one we're going to check you, the driver. We're checking your license, making sure that you have the appropriate class CDL, making sure that you have a good medical card. There are no restrictions. We're making sure that you have that registration, that ELD or the log. We're making sure that all of your documents are up to date and enforced, making sure that they're where they need to be. This inspection can take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And I'll just be frank, the better organized you are, the faster those inspections will go. All right, when we start digging for stuff, of course, it's going to extend it. Now, we can run every document that you have. That is the greatest thing with technology today. I can look at everything that you currently have on your equipment. Paperwork, we can look at it all. The next one is a level 2. This is where we're doing essentially what you did that morning or before you started your day with your pre-trip. This one we're going to still look at the driver, the paperwork, but now we're going to walk around, check the tires, check the lights, make sure everything is in proper working order. This one can take 30 to 45 minutes depending on the setup of the truck. The last one is a full level 1. This is now where we're going to go under the truck and we're actually going to check your brakes. If you have drum brakes, we're going to check the throw on that stroke for the chambers. If it's disc, we're going to make sure that everything is in order and there's no damage to those brakes. This one will take 45 minutes to an hour. It is our longest one that we do. Our road guys, typically, we don't do those on the road just for safety. I'm not going to go into your truck on the side of the road just because if something catastrophic occurs, I'm going to be in the wrong place at the right time. So we try to not do those roadside. Hours of service, of course, short haul. You do have that 150 air mile radius. Remember that. That is beginning from the same location and ending at the same location. With that, you still have a max hours of 14 for your day. Now, you are allowed a 16-hour day, but you could not have used it in the last 5 or plan to use it in the next 2. You are also held to still the 11-hour max driving. With the short haul, this is typically where your guys are doing a lot of drops, a lot of stop and goes, your local guys. You're over the road. Remember, you have the sleeper berth provision, 7 and 3. You must have a continuous 7 hours down in the sleeper before we'll even begin to count your hours. That one is really confusing to drivers. It's very confusing for us to train our guys. So it is, but it is available for you. Remember, you have personal conveyance, you have adverse driving conditions. Be cautious with both. There's a lot of misconceptions on both. The adverse driving conditions, it allows you up to 2 hours. It doesn't give you a 2-hour window. It allows you to the nearest, safest location. And personal conveyance is also one of those that is very confusing as far as what is allowed and what is not. And just remember that 30-minute break. Make sure you are taking that after 8 hours of drive time. Some of the exemptions for the ELD. If you are a short haul operator, you are not required that ELD. If you are somebody who operates 8 days in a 30-day window, less than that, you're allowed to. If you've got that older engine truck, 2000 or older, 99 and older, or if you're a drive-away, tow-away operation, that does allow you exemptions from that ELD. If you have those documents for the ELD, you have to have that instruction page. You have to have that malfunction. You also have to have a sufficient amount of paper logs in case that malfunctions. If you find a malfunction or you have a malfunction, just remember to immediately go to that paper log, the city, and the time of the malfunction have to be put in there, and notate ELD malfunction. If you're able to gain the previous 7, that's great. If not, you will have to recreate those 7 days. Everybody always asks me, how do I keep from seeing you? What do you think? What do you think? Pre-trip, right? Yes. Pre-trip, pre-trip, pre-trip. If you want to avoid seeing me, a good pre-trip will help your odds in that, okay? I was telling some guys in the back of the room, at the scale that I'm over, we usually get anywhere from 12 to 20,000 trucks in a day going across our scale. We have 4 guys working in that scale, so your odds are better playing the lottery at getting stopped. But again, things we see are what's going to get you. A pre-trip inspection will help. How long does it take to do a pre-trip inspection? How long? 20 minutes. Anybody say any different? 30? What's the industry standard? 45? Somebody's going to say it. Come on. There it is, 15. Now, why was it 15? Think about the old log books. Paper logs, what was the increments? 15 minutes. That was the quickest you could get away without hurting your hours, right? 15 minutes. That's the best question I ask. How long did it take you to pre-trip? 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay? So now let's think about the dynamics of your trucks. How quickly does your air come up? Couple minutes? Okay? How long does it take you to check the left turn signal on the rear of the trailer? Actually physically looking at it. Because remember, we got to start the truck, left turn, crawl down, look at how far I got to go. Then I got to go all the way back, turn the right one on. So we've got time coming in there, right? At the end of the day, Federal Motor Carriers has no time. It's when you, the driver, are satisfied that all parts and accessories are in proper working condition that is not likely to cause a breakdown or crash. Because who is behind that wheel? You are. Who is the most precious cargo in that truck? You are. Now, does your company think that? Hopefully they do. Hopefully they do. But at the end of the day, we want you to be the safest. All right, I'll give you a heads up on this. Everybody watch the screen. Who saw birds? All right. Who saw rocks and water? There we go. All right, I was you to sleep on me. So we're looking for big birds. We're going to do it again. How about now? Oh, got two in the back. Y'all are in trouble now. We're going to do it one more time. I promise you there's more than 5 up there. There's actually 7. I'll go ahead and give you the number. There are 7 birds up there. They're big birds too. How about now? Couple of you? All right. Do they stand out to you now they're in the back? They kind of jump out at you, don't they? My little clicker doesn't work here. Right in the center of the screen, you've got 7 black dots. This isn't working up on the LED. Is there anybody that doesn't see them? You don't see them? Let's see if I can make this work. Right here. See them now? So that's not meant to, pick on anybody or anything, but think about this. When you walk out to your trucks, coming out either of the truck stop, coming out of the wash bay, wherever you're at, what's the first thing you look at? Okay. Yeah, make sure nobody's pulled your fifth wheel. Tires, right? Everybody looks at tires. Then you look, is anything hanging off my truck? But he made the best comment today. Your kingpin release. Have you all heard people are doing that at these stops? They're still doing it. Yeah, they're still doing it. Apparently guys are pulling up to the fuel island, getting their bags, going in, having dinner, shower, and then coming back out and getting fuel. People are pulling them. So that's the birds, guys. I want you, when you're doing your inspections, look for the birds. We see the big picture. You see your trucks, you see your trailers, you see the big things. But make sure that you don't have an electrical line that's hanging down that's fixing to get wrapped up in your drive shaft. Make sure that you don't hear that air leak. With the May check coming up, the tractor protection valve is one of the checks, as well as the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. We're going to be looking hard at those protection valves. If you've never seen how to properly check one, we're doing demonstrations back in the West Wing. We've got a wall of a brakes assembly, and it will show you how to do that. But make sure that those are corrected. Before you ever leave, you always check the critical items. Our most important part is the brakes, right? That is the most important part of your truck. Coupling devices, exhaust, frames. Make sure that you don't have any cracks or damage to your frames. Fuel systems, your lighting devices. Now, if you're one that you love to light your truck up, we're only looking at the ones that are required. That's the ones we're looking for. Load securement is huge, right? How many of you like driving your nice trucks? Do you want somebody's load in your windshield? No. Load securement is huge. Make sure that you're checking that. And when you stop, double check it. I know that's for some of the professionals, that's easy, right? A lot of the guys coming in new to the game, we want you to understand, check that load securement. Steering components, make sure you don't have anything loose, damaged, broken. Suspension, no air leaks, your tires. Watch for damage to tires. Watch for low tread depth, right? Flat tires happen. Low tread depth, you just didn't sit out and burn them off in front of the stop, right? So make sure you're checking those. Trailer bodies, no damage, no broken items on those, and the doors are closed. You all have seen somebody driving down the road with their doors wide open. Wheels and rims, and this includes lug nuts, ensure that they are all tight, not damaged, free of cracks. And why are wipers important? You got to be able to see, right? How many of you during the winter, you get out there and you get a little slush on your windshield and you reach down to hit that button and it goes, what happens to your windshield? Gets covered. Now you're driving like Ace Ventura, right? Head stuck out the window? Yeah. So you got to make sure that you keep that free and clean because that is your most vital part right there. There are a lot of states, Indiana's one of them, they will check your washer fluid. So make sure you have washer fluid. They will check that and they will hit you on a violation. All right, so make sure you are always checking these no matter what. Some things that are out of service conditions, brake lights out. We're talking the rearmost portion of the trailer or the truck. One out is just a violation. Both lights out would be an out of service condition. A turn signal on either of the rear sides will place that truck out of service. Any improper load securement, it's either not enough securement, you don't have enough to cover half the weight of the load, you may have damaged securements. Anything that's loose. So if you've got something, dunnage is the biggest one we see with no securement. Bungees are no longer a securement. You cannot use bungee cords to secure things. Now, if you're just securing other bungees, you're fine. Or if it's holding your tarp down when it's over the load, that's fine. But for anything else, you have to have an actual securement. Any tires, so we're looking low tread depth. Steer tire, 430 seconds. Any other tires, 230 seconds. For violations, out of services on a steer tire is at 230 seconds, and on all others is 130 seconds. Those tire management systems that we were talking about, we're looking for anything that's underinflated, so anything 50% or more on low air. So if it shows 110 PSI, at 55, that's an out of service condition. Breakaway systems, again, this is that tractor protection valve. We're going to have you check that. We're going to make sure no air passes through that and that the truck is able to safely stop. And then just anything falling or leaking from the truck. Those are items that we're looking for those out of service conditions. So load securement is a big thing, like I said. Everything that goes on a vehicle must be secured to prevent it from leaking, spilling, blowing, or falling onto the roadway. If you go down the road, you look up against the barrier walls or look off on the shoulders, there's all kinds of things, right? Guys, y'all don't know how many tools I've collected out on the roadside. Ladders. Oh, we've had ladders out there that are in perfect condition, just got a little road rash on them. But it's what's been lost. We want you to be safe. We want you to ensure that you have that load securement because at the end of the day, you're still what sits in front of it. And if you have to get hard on your brakes, where's that load coming first? To you, right? It's coming right into you. This is why. Check those loads. Don't allow yourself to be part of the load. Do not let yourself be that way. Headache racks are no longer a requirement. So make sure that you have load securement. Make sure it's secured properly. And there's nothing wrong with over-securing. We get that question all the time. Well, what if I add 3 or 4 more? Great. Please do. Because if one of those others fail, you have a backup system. Nothing says you don't have to do over. So we want you to go as much as possible. Another aspect of load securement is shifting. You also must secure that cargo to prevent it from shifting. You come around a curve, your load shifts, what happens to your truck? There we go, right? Happens all the time. Some of these states you go in and out of have large curves. Going down a hill, you've got speed picked up. You go into a curve, that load shifts. There you go. Now you're on your side. So make sure that you are checking that load. Don't let yourself get away. In the regs, it's 3 hours or 150 miles. CDL rules, it's 50 miles. So make sure you're checking those load securements. Don't let yourself get caught in a load securement issue. And I'm not talking about caught when I say us. I mean don't get yourself injured because of a load securement issue. Some things that are outside of the mechanics world. Speeding, all right? Now, I'm going to speak on me, all right? So first and foremost, I preface this. Do not get stopped and throw out the disclaimer, well, Sergeant Morris said. But speeding on a 2-lane road, I'm going to give you 9 over. At 10 over, I'm going to stop you for speeding. On the interstates, I'm going to give you 6 over. At 77, I'm going to stop you. Now, a lot of guys that drives for big carriers, yes, there are trucks out there that can run 100 plus miles per hour. We know, we've stopped them. The most I've ever had was a KW running 103. So it is possible, yes, sir. So please watch your speed, because once you get above that 15, it is a major moving violation. And those are a huge negative on everything that you do. Following too close, 250 feet off the rear of another vehicle is what you're required to stay. Now, guys, let's be frank. Can you really stay 250 feet off the rear of another vehicle? Why? Everybody on the interstate plugs that hole, right? So you get some relief when you're in congested areas. You get relief when you're in cities, or you get relief in residential business areas. In those times, be as safe as what you know you can be with your trucks. We're not going to hit you on that. We're looking more of when you're out on the open road. And we do have LiDAR and lasers that we can detect both your speed and the distance between cars. So we'll shoot the truck in front of you, the truck behind you. It gives us the footage, and it gives us the seconds. So we can tell how far you are off of those other vehicles. So please make sure that's there, because the reactionary time for you to get stopped on a good day, 3/4 of a second up to a second and a half is what our reaction time is. To get a tractor trailer stop can take up to 3 football fields. 947 feet is what it can take. So please, people out there do not realize that it takes you that long. Most four-wheelers will look at you and say, well, you've got 18 wheels, 10 brakes, you can stop on a dime, right? You can't. They don't realize that. And there's scammers that are still out there. They will pull in front of you and slow down to get you to hit them just so they can get a paycheck. So guys, everything is too outrageous as it is. Don't let these guys get you there. Talking and texting on the phone, we'll talk about that just a little bit more in detail. Improper lane use. Here in Kentucky, if you're on I-65 or 75, we do have a lane-restricted area. If you're in the left lane, you have 6 or more wheels, and it is a restricted area, you are not allowed to be there, even for passing. The right 2 lanes are for you. All right, be cautious, because on Kentucky license, that's 4 points, and it's a 30-point hit on CSA. So it's a big lick. So be very cautious. Please stay out of that. If we see something happens in front of you, we're going to give you the grace. Cameras. How many of you run cameras in your trucks? I recommend every one of you, because if somebody cuts you off and you've got to jump out there, as long as you can show me evidence, I'm not going to penalize you. You were doing the safest thing possible. You were being the safe, appropriate driver here. The other individual is what caused the recklessness. So we want you to be safe. Seatbelt use. Make sure you are wearing that belt. Yes, you can have it a little bit loose, not so much that you can jump rope with it. Make sure that it's across the shoulder and the hips. Remember what your safe area is. If you come up and come down on your neck, you've got the breastbone, and it runs down about right here. Where does that belt hit? Just above that, right? The reason for that, that is your structure zone. That's what keeps you safe. Do trucks have airbags in the steering wheels? Some do, they're starting to, but the majority do not. So what's keeping you in that seat? Just your seat belt. Otherwise, you're a hood ornament, right? Yes. Wear that seat belt. We have seen far too many fatalities that have occurred that resulted because of a non-seat belt used incident. The person chose to not wear that belt, and because of that, they were thrown out of the vehicle. Had they had the belt on, they would have walked away. Please wear that seat belt. It is very important. Reckless driving, that's pretty plain and simple. If you're doing something stupid on the road, it's probably reckless. If you're out riding up and down the shoulders of the roadway, cutting people off, excessive speeding, those are reckless driving moves. Please, we try to make sure everyone is as safe as they possibly can be. Cell phones. What are your company policies on cell phones? 0? Okay. What about hands-free? Can you use a headset? Yeah. Federal Motor Carriers is that you can use hands-free, one touch. So you're either hitting the button on a Bluetooth speaker, you're hitting it on the truck, you're reaching up and hitting answer on the phone. That's fine. You are allowed to do that, but you just cannot have it in those hands. The only exception to that is if you are making an emergency call. Now, if I see you with your head, with that phone up to your head, and you tell me you've called in an emergency, what number should be in your phone? 911, right? We have had that happen. Guys we'll see going by, and they're up on there. We stop them. Man, this guy just cut me off. He almost hit me. He's got a kid jumping in the back seat. I was calling 911. What kind of car was it? Great, be safe. You'll see me run back to my truck, get in it, and blow by you trying to go find this guy because he is a danger, and I appreciate you calling that in. Now, I also know that you'll be on the phone for your entire trip. Yes, I do know that. But if you see somebody that's out there that's unsafe, call us. We want to know. You're not bothering us, I promise. I drive a fully marked Tahoe. It's a moving billboard. Do you think people do crazy stuff around me? No. Sometimes. Sometimes people go blowing by you and they'll lock it up about the time they see the door seal. But you're my eyes out there. You're what helps us. Oh, yeah, that's great. I was coming up to one of the shows up here last year, and we stayed out on the east end of town, and we're coming up I-64, and all of a sudden I hear, "Roar!" Little white car got about right here, and he locks it up. He figured out what I was. So, comical, it is. But we do have radar on the trucks. We can run 4 different directions, so we can get you coming from behind us, going away from us, coming at us in the front, or going away. We can even sit sideways and get you bypassing us. So the radars are amazing. With the cell phones, though, back to that. If you are found with that cell phone, for Kentucky, it's about a $170 fine, and it's 3 points on your CDL. It is a 30-point hit on CSA. It is very huge on CSA. If your company is audited and you are one of the drivers that is selected out of the random draw, that will be something that they'll violate the company on if you're found to have that. They will send that company an $11,000 fine. They're going to send you, the driver, a $2,750 fine. And the company has to pay their part. They can't pass that on to you. So be very cautious. If you're involved in a crash that results in serious physical injury or a fatality, and we think that there's even a remote chance that that phone is involved, we're going to seize that phone, and we're going to image it. We're going to see if there was anything on there because we can detect what you were doing on that phone. So please, I strongly urge you, don't use the phones. And you see it, guys and gals. You see it every day. You're driving down the road and a driver there on his phone. A driver's got a tablet watching a movie. The best I ever stopped on that side, a guy was watching Dumb and Dumber on a portable DVD player. I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm coming down the road, and of course, I'm always looking in mirrors as I'm approaching drivers, and I'm like, man, that guy's really lit up. I'm like, that's just way too much light. So I'm sneaky, so I creep up, and I get up there, and I'm like, man, there's a whole lot of light, and I don't see his interior lights on, so all right, I'm going through my little checklist, and I creep up just a little more, and here's Lloyd. And I'm like, he's watching Dumb and Dumber. Holy cow. So, of course, I get on the brakes, get behind him, stop him, get up to the truck, guess where the DVD player is? Oh, it's back in the bunk buried, right? He's chucked that thing so far back in there as he can get it. And I said, man, what are you doing watching Dumb and Dumber? He said, huh? I said, Ed Lloyd was sitting right there. I said, you couldn't miss him. And he dropped that head. I said, man, you can't be out here driving like that. I know you all see it in four-wheelers all the time. The best I ever stopped there, a lady was running 94 miles an hour, driving with her knee and eating noodles with chopsticks. I can't do it sitting at a table, much less running 94 miles an hour. So, yes, there are things that occur out there that are crazy, and we want you to call, please. I stress that. Please, you are our eyes, all right? We want you to be safe because you move the country. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that safety, and you all help us out. I promise you do. All right, throw them at me. Dunnage is like your 4x4s, 2x4s, anything that you would secure to a flatbed, maybe for coils, anything that you would put for load securement to prevent something from moving forward. A lot of your flatbedders, you'll see the blocks of wood underneath. Right, that's your dunnage. Cannot do that. Has to have a strap. Yes, 2016, they removed the bungees from any securement value whatsoever. Sure did. Every time. So here's the thing. So the violation on that is an out-of-service condition. If they have in there, and what it'll show up for us, we can't see why. We can't see what prohibited you. All that we get is just a red message at the top that said driver is prohibited from operating a safety-sensitive function, and it gives us a reference number that of federal regs. So we can't do anything on that. That would be from our auditors. That's who would check that. From the roadside standpoint, we cannot check that. All we're able to check is if you have been prohibited on the roadside enforcement. So there is. So Kentucky has a keep right law. Okay, keep right except to pass. The problem is with that, unless you are running below the speed limit, Kentucky law has an exemption in there that we can't stop you on that as far as a passenger car. In the truck world, it's because we don't want to create a parking lot. How many of you have been behind two 62-mile-an-hour trucks battling it out in the middle two lanes? One got a slight headwind, and now we've got a race, right? If we throw that out in the left lane, now what do we have? We have a parking lot. That's the biggest reason for it. And it's not necessarily the driver of the truck that we're worried about in that instance. It's the backup that's caused behind him, the road rage that comes from that. So we start at the top and try to work our way back on it. Sure. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, now, some states don't have it. So you have to remember where you're at. Right. Now, for me, again, me personally, I grew up in a driving family. My father drove and retired from it, so I've been in the truck in that scenario. Jump out, get around and back in. Again, I'm prefacing this, I'm not going to stop you. It's the ones that get out there and hang out. That's the ones that I'm going to stop for me. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, can you civilly go after that driver? Yeah, because you have a contract. As long as it's a viable and actual contract that they're signing, you could go after them on the civil side. That could be something you could recoup some of that cost. But for our world, it's not going to change anything. Well, I'll tell you, if I stop you, you've run over me because this is what I do now. You know, guys, that's the thing. A lot of our guys are just moving. What you call the old sit and stop watch, we don't do that anymore just because it's easy to be detected. Now, the interstates, we do, especially here in this post district in Elizabethtown. You come down the big hill, right there at the bottom, there's a turnaround. That's where I used to always sit. But now, when I was down there, I'm looking for cars. And most of the time, I'm not starting on those guys until 90 or 100. So just because it's crazy amounts of speed that you're getting at those. Back of the room there. So parking is an epidemic. It is a massive problem. Kentucky is striving to try to increase our parking. We have several things in place right now to try to assist you. Parking on ramps is illegal. There is no number. It's just straight illegal. Again, that's going to be down to discretion of officer. Again, for me, if you are across the line, not in a dangerous manner, I'm probably going to leave you alone. If you're down extending beyond the ramp, I'm going to tell you to move. But it is a great issue that's causing a lot of drivers in the industry a great problem right now. So it's something that a lot of states are really trying to get a hold on. And anytime a new truck stop is built, just as soon as it's done, it's already outdated on parking. It's already overpacked. So we know that. We try to work with drivers. Some states are no-go. Just be cautious in certain states. If they have that, they will enforce it. Now, we can't do an inspection on you, but they will issue you a traffic citation for that. Let's see, I'll come back to you first. Just the CSA. Just type in CSA. I think it's CSA.com. But just go to it. You can actually enter your DOT number, and it'll bring up all of your safety. And we check that. I'll go through and check carriers on that aspect of it just to kind of see where they stand if I've got you on a stop. Just looking back at your previous. It does show the weight and everything on that. Anybody that's got a DOT number, you can run them. Yeah. Now, for yourself, you would have to go through your company because they have a portal that you can look into. There is a way for you to get access to that website. You can go in and get yourself access to actually look at what you have on you. But if you're for a carrier, all of your stuff would still be in their database as well. Back of the room there? Yes. Mm-hmm. Unless we see something that is obvious, that's an out-of-service condition, yes. We're not going to do that random inspection on you. If I see that, let's see, right now it's March, so that one should be a green, and it should have no decals or no corners tore off if you've had it in March. So if I see that green with no corners marked, then I'm going to let you ride, unless I see something that's obvious. But yes, most states will do that. Now, most states have stopped giving them out because CVSA is charging us for those now. Used to, they were given to us. Now we're having to pay for them. So we're not giving out as many to our guys as what we used to. We used to give them 3 or 4 books. Now we give them a couple sheets. So. Whew. We don't know yet. A lot of that stuff is still in the introductory stage. So, and the bad part about for enforcement side, until it goes into effect, we find out about 2 weeks later. I have not. We have had an instance with a Tesla that had the automated driving. The driver was asleep behind the wheel, and it was in the autopilot mode. And the only way we were able to get it stopped was to get in front of it and beside it. That way it was unable to make any lane changes. So that was the only way we could stop it. But that's the only instance that I know of. I know some of the far western states are running into some of those. I haven't heard really on what they're seeing. My curiosity, I guess, would be the speed. How is their lane deviation? How are they doing that way? That's kind of where I want to see. Yeah, it's all by Google Maps, I guess, and AI. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. You can. You can always ask. If our guys are not busy and don't care, they'll do one. If you've got pre-pass, I know it does make it hard and difficult. And if you go for an extended amount of time without an inspection, it'll actually drive your score in the negative range. It'll put you into a bad rating just because there's no data there. If you have a need for an inspection, of course, always stop in. Just say, listen, guys, I'm not looking for any reason. I'm not getting a bonus for this. I'm just looking for safety score. If you could, would you care to do an inspection? Most of the time, our guys will do it for you, but it's not something we make them do. Yeah, you get the same inspection. Yeah. Yep, it would be just like a random. CVSA, CSA, and FMCSA do not know if it's a random or if it's an enforcement stop. They have no way of knowing. Now, we do have check-off blocks that we can tell if it's a speed or any kind of real traffic violation. There are ways to do that. But if it's just randoms, they have no way of knowing. Yes, sir. Are federal? That's one of those that Oak Ridge is a big one that we deal with. They're moving a lot of your nuclear loads. Those guys, they'll send their pilot truck through, and they're a federal agent. And they'll come in and say, listen, we've got a truck that's fixing to come through. He's not going to come into the scales unless you ask him. And I will be honest, when they do, they come through wide open because they're not going to let us get a weight. They're not going to let us get a look at anything. So, but no, they're not required. They'll give us the honor of actually coming in and saying, hey, we're coming through. We're letting you know. That way, if you see this truck bypass, don't come running after us. This is who we are. And there's typically a large caravan of vehicles that are in accompaniment with them. Be the Department of Energy, right? Yeah, if it's to the point that it's a danger for you, we don't want you backed out into the roadway at all. But also don't look and go, yeah, I don't think I can get in there and run by. We can tell. With Kentucky, all of our stuff is fully automated. So we have sensors in the roadway that tell when our ramp is getting backed up, and it will shut off a lot sooner. So if you're backed out into the road on ours, it's very rare. Now, my E-Town scale, yeah, you're going to get backed out on it, and we will tell you to bypass it. But again, watch those states. If they allow you to bypass them, rock on. But if it's something that you can get a truck in there, go ahead and pull in. We're in the west wing. If you come into the west wing, go all the way to the back wall, and we're about halfway down. Sorry, sir, go ahead. Try that one more time. No. If you are stopped, I cannot inspect you. I have to get you moving, or unless you're involved in a crash. Those are the only two ways that I can physically inspect you. Now, I can actually issue you a traffic citation. If you are parked in a no parking zone on a ramp, something like that, I can issue a citation, but no, sir, I am not able to do a federal safety inspection on you. Yes, if you have a CDL, we are going to check it, even if it's a non-CDL, because once you are placed into that drug and alcohol clearinghouse, if you are prohibited, that's from any safety sensitive, and that starts at 10,001 for an interstate carrier. So, it depends. Kentucky, we adopted all federal interstate regulations as in-state as well. So everything that's interstate, we adopted and enforce in-state. Other states, Tennessee being one, unless you're over 26,000, you don't adhere to any of the regulations as long as you're in-state. Kentucky, we start at 10,001. It does not matter if you're an intrastate or an interstate carrier, we're going to uphold all the laws as well. So if you are in a half-ton pickup truck in a tandem axle trailer and you're 12,000 GVWR, even though you have a CDL, if you are prohibited, we are going to shut you down because you are not allowed to operate in that capacity. No, I don't. I used to, when I started in 2012 doing the public affairs, I tried to keep up with the 8 bordering states. I quickly learned that I could not do that. It was hard enough to keep up with Kentucky, much less 8 other states, so I quickly moved outside of that realm. If it was something that was pressing, I never cared to open up their law and go digging. But as far as trying to know it, no, I quit that really early. Sure. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Because remember, safety sensitive starts at 10,001 for federal motor carriers because that's the definition of a commercial motor vehicle. Unless your state has an intrastate exemption, that would be the only time that that would not apply. So if it's a personal vehicle, we cannot inspect them. The definition of a commercial motor vehicle is any vehicle used in commerce. That is the key word, commerce. That is 10,001 gross vehicle weight, combination weight, or physical weight. Yes, so if you've got a government-plated vehicle, especially in Kentucky, it is fully exempt from anything. Now, I can write it state traffic citations, and we do that. We have counties that their equipment is in very poor shape. Even though we can't stop and do a safety inspection, we can stop and issue traffic citations and still have that vehicle towed because Kentucky has a vehicle inspection law in that category. You still have to have good tires, wipers, brake lights, headlights, so forth. Yes. Great questions, guys. Great questions. I think we got about 10 more minutes. Y'all can ask anything. If I don't know, I'll tell you. I'm not bashful. Back of the room there. Race car haulers. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So my first question is, do you have all the nice sponsors down the side? Absolutely. Okay? Then yes, that is commerce. Because you are, even though you might not make a profit for that year, you're utilizing taxes, right? Write-offs, gains, things like that. So that would be subject to the regulations just the same. And what I tell everybody, think about your NASCAR haulers. They all have DOT numbers. It might be to RCR, Richard Childress Racing, but that would be who the DOT number's to. Most of those guys, they put it under some other LLC. That way it keeps it separate from their actual business. That way if something catastrophic occurs, it doesn't take everything. So we do urge that. But yes, they do fall into that realm of commercial. Sure do. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Me, Facebook is the greatest thing in the world because everybody's proud of their stuff, right? How many of you know people that they own a business, but they're like, oh, I'm not in business. But yet on Facebook, right? And what's behind them? All their equipment, right? I'll come do dirt work for you. It's the interview process. I'm going to interview you, and I don't listen as much as what you say as much as I'm watching your body language. If you're turning away from me, if you're tensing up, you're not telling me the truth. I know you're going to be nervous. We're looking, that shaking might be there. That's common. But when there's no eye contact, when the voice starts cracking, when we start seeing that guarded look, that's when I start asking more questions. And the thing is, I'll come off like I'm, working with you, but what I'm doing is feeding you that rope. And you're sitting there making that noose. And then I let it go around that neck, and then I set that hook, right? But it's all in the interview process. That's where it comes from. So, and if we can determine it, because again, we have those camera systems at our scales. If you're out of, let's say, my home county of Taylor County, and I see you going through our Kenton County scales. Come on, man, why are you 3 hours away? What are you doing with your equipment? You're not just personal use at that point in time. But it's all interview. So, and if you're truly personal use, rock on. If you like Transformers, and this is the example I give, if you like the movie Transformers and Optimus Prime is your biggest thing that you love, and you've got just money to blow, and you go over to Peterbilt, buy you a brand new Pete, turn it into Optimus Prime, you can drive that truck anywhere you want to go across the country with just a driver's license, a car plate, and an insurance card, because you are not commercial. Until you put something on there for business purpose, it is a private vehicle, and you can do all you want. Mm-hmm. That's it. Nope. Mm-hmm. Nope. The thing is, you might get stopped because we kind of go with the duck theory. Looks like a duck, it's quacking like a duck, but it's not walking like a duck. He's an RV. Because you've got guys out here that are moving RVs for companies. We get a lot of it coming out of Elkhart, Indiana, here going south to Florida. So we would be looking for that. But with that, would you have bicycles on the back of it? Would you have your little bathroom toter on the back of it? No, you're not. We're looking for those things that looks personal. You don't have a brand new one still wrapped in plastic, everything's on there. That's not going to be something. You're going to have a lived-in motorhome. That's easy to tell. So, and again, it falls back to that interview process. But yes, you can drive everywhere you want to go, sir. So that falls into state law. So every state, when you get into length, width, height, and weight, that is state to state. Some states allow doubles, triples, some states don't. Kentucky, it's 65 feet in length. So if you've got your pickup truck, your motor, or your camper and your boat behind it, as long as you're 65 feet or less, we're not going to say anything to you. Texas is the same way. Well, that's 14.1. So if it's a parade, I'm probably not going to hassle you, but I might take that as a future look. Like, all right, we might want to look at this guy, especially if I see you, because the areas that we work, we know the individuals in our areas. We know where they're coming from, going to, and if I see you somewhere that I know you don't have land or that you don't have something going on, then it raises my suspicions. That's when I start looking a little harder, and I may not stop you that day. I may give you 6 months. And I'm just continuously watching you throughout there. Yeah, I might ask. I mean, it will raise more questions, but it's all in the interview. And how you answer that is all I have to go by. If you're like, no, I'm personal, unless I have enough hard evidence to prove, I have to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I do. If I'm ever in question, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to enforce just to make an erroneous violation or a citation. My credibility is so much more to me than just a citation. There's nothing worth that. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, because we're still going to look at the GVWRs. If they're missing, we're going to weigh you out. So we're going to double check that. Nah, it's moot point. Just like the not for hire. How many of you see people with not for hire? You might as well put a big neon bullseye on your truck because I'm going to see it. Because that's okay. Somebody's told him just a little bit, but hasn't given him the full package. So I'm going to stop and see what's missing. So when you become a commercial motor vehicle, you have that CDO, and we're having that to happen some today. There is a caveat of refusal to be inspected. Even through the interview process, I'm going to ask you base questions. I need your driver's license. Kentucky has a driver's license law that you have to present that if you're operating a motor vehicle. Your insurance, your truck papers, your load bills. I'm going to ask you for those. If you refuse, we do have some things that we can do to entice you to want to do that. So it typically starts with a 60-ton wrecker and some nice, shiny little bracelets. So, but typically I've never had that because, guys, the way you see me up here is the way I am under hat. You know, I treat you because my father drove. I've been with him during an inspection that was not the greatest. I won't say the state or the area, but I was kicked out of a scale, and right before I walked out, I pitched some Kentucky State Police keychains up on the thing. Said, guys, just want y'all to have that. Have a good day. Well, who do you work for? Guys, I'm all right, thank you. Well, they chased me out the door and was trying to get me to come back in. I said, guys, this is what we strive for. These guys put their pants on just like you do. They have a job to do just like you do. Treat them like you want to be treated. If that was your mother in the truck, would you want her treated that way? That's the way I am. I knock on your door, how are you today? Not saying he does it or anything. Yep. 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 So that does give you an exemption because if it's 220 inches or more of living space, it is classed as an RV. And if it is that, Federal Motor Carriers gets very gray on whether it can be. And that has been an argument. I did this in 06. It has been an argument on that for many years. So until Federal Motor Carriers comes out with a definitive answer on that, we err on the side of caution. Yep. Nope, they're not going to touch you because you are classed as a recreational vehicle. Yes, sir. That is correct. One more question. I think I'm out of time after that one. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. They can. A lot of states have an in-state law where they'll go back in on your taxes and stuff, and they can look that way and try to get you. Kentucky, we don't go that way. Our guys don't worry about going back. Now our auditors might, but we don't roadside. We don't roadside. I think you had your hand up there. Uh-huh. No, GVWR has no bearing on it. We go by what the plate weight is. Now, we also can look at tire weight. If you're exceeding the tire weights, we look at that. But as far as GVWRs, we don't get into that. Now, civilly, they will. These attorneys on the billboards, they're the ones that's going to look at that hard because if they can show that you're negligent, even 1%, if they're suing you for $500 million, 1% of $500 million is a cash cow, right? That's all they want. They want to prove that you had a little bit of responsibility in that. They are. Kentucky looked at 96,000, but our road bases couldn't handle it, and it would destroy our roadways within months. So right now, Kentucky's staying with 80. We're not allowing any more to go up currently. Now, that's not to say in a few years that it doesn't change. So, yes. Guys and gals, I'm out of time. I'm sorry. If you want, you can catch me outside if you need to ask any more, but thank you all.